and there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go.
Be careful what you wish for, because if you don't know it now, you're going to learn it later. Welcome to the program, my friends. Cowboy State Politics Live on a Wednesday. I'm your host, the illustrious David Iverson, broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio. Welcome to the program, my friends. Wow, what a night last night. The GOP participated in what can only be described as not a very surprising bloodbath. Now, there's a piece on justthenews.com this morning that's entitled, Election Night Bloodbath Sends Warning to GOP for the Midterms. Maybe. And I quote, the Republicans lost every major contest in Tuesday night's elections in what appears to be a clear indicator of voter dissatisfaction with their governance since President Donald Trump took office. Now, this has got to be the first example of a piece from John Solomon's JustTheNews.com that, he's technically correct, but I don't know that we should characterize this as anything more than as pretty much what we expected. Although, in all the major races, and there were four of them, actually. No, five. Oh, well, wait a minute. Maybe he's right. Well, let's go through them. According to JustTheNews.com, Democrats made a clean sweep of Virginia's statewide races and even managed to pull the scandal-plagued Jay Jones over the line. He's the guy that in text messages said he wanted to give 2 bullets to Republicans and their children. What a nice fellow that guy is. In New Jersey, Mikey Sherrill defied Republican momentum and kept the state's blue streak alive. Meanwhile, the star of the night, oh, how we love him, Zoran Mamdani, managed to overcome a bipartisan effort to rally behind Governor Andrew Cuomo to become the mayor of New York City. Again, not all that surprising. And finally, California voters approved Proposition 50, allowing the state to circumvent the independent redistricting process that has been in effect in the state for nearly 20 years. It approves a new congressional map that gives the Democrats a chance to gain up to 5 seats in the 2026 midterm elections. There was, in short, simply no silver lining for the GOP Tuesday evening whatsoever. Well, like I said, it is not all that surprising. Mamdani has been ahead in the polls for a really long time. I mean, pretty much since he entered the race. And let's just say that New York City is not the conservative stronghold that some other areas of the country are. Andrew Cuomo, clearly not a good candidate. I mean, a perfect example of taking the best of the worst, the cream of the crap, the lesser of two evils. But he's not a conservative, nor has he ever been. I mean, we're talking about the guy who put people into nursing homes during COVID, during the pandemic, and effectively signed their death warrant. He's the guy that had to leave office because of a sexual harassment scandal. So it's not like we had a lot of good choices in that election. Okay, Curtis Sliwa, actually, I really like him, but there was no chance that he was going to win. He was always going to poll really, really low. And in Virginia, having lived in Virginia for the better part, more than a decade, I can tell you that in Virginia politics, it goes back and forth. That you'll have a Republican administration and then you'll have a Democrat administration. Now, while I haven't looked at the map, I bet if you looked at an electoral map of Virginia, the vast majority of it will be painted a deep shade of red. And then in the northwest part of the state, or the northeast part of the state, rather, you're going to see a couple of counties that were turned blue. That's exactly how the map looked during Obama's second election. Republicans pretty much took the vast majority of the state, but it was those two highly populated areas around Arlington and right around Washington, D.C. that almost always carry the state. So it's not like this was entirely unexpected. Now, the one that does kind of surprise me is the Attorney General, Jay Jones. Okay, that guy had some pretty nasty stuff come out in the media. His own text messages saying that he wanted to kill his opponents. So that one, a little bit surprising, but I didn't really follow it as close as I probably should, except for the headlines. And even New Jersey. New Jersey was not all that expected either. I mean, it is not one of those Republican states. So while Republicans didn't win any of the races on last night, it's not like we didn't know that this was going to happen. I mean, yeah, it's a bloodbath, but kind of an expected one. At best, it was going to be 50%.
What's interesting about this to me is that the Republicans won't learn from it.
No, we never do.
Yeah, and what I mean by that is we don't make a marked difference. It doesn't really seem to make much difference who is in control. Things essentially go south. And did you ever watch the movie Paint Your Wagon?
Of course.
Okay.
Great movie.
Gene Seberg's character in there is a Mormon woman, and they're traveling across the country. They get out to California, and they come into this mining community, she and her husband and his two wives. And all the miners are looking at, they haven't seen women in months.
Right, forever, right?
Yeah.
They don't even remember what a woman looks like.
Yeah, and they see Gene Seberg, and they say, hey, why has he got two of what none of us got? And so they proposed to have an auction and buy his extra wife.
Yeah, well, I mean, makes sense to me, right?
Yeah, out here we abide by mining law. It's a great evil flick. Anyway, in protest, Gene Seberg's husband looks at her and says, "But you don't know what you'll get." And she turns around and she says, "Well, I know what I've had." And I think that's the people of New York. They looking at people who claim to be different, and they're not really. And they think, how bad could it be? It really can't be
They're
that bad.
They're about to find out.
Exactly.
And it's, again, I often say this, that voters get exactly what they deserve, and the rest of us, well, we get what we deserve too. And here's why I say that. You know, the turnout in the primary election in New York, the one that Mom Donnie won, the first one that he won, the turnout was really, really low. I mean, and for a city the size of New York, and I don't remember what the numbers were, but I do remember that it was extraordinarily low.
When New York Times called it, there were like 900,000 votes for Mamdani.
Yeah.
And it was 51% of the vote.
Yeah, it was absolutely ridiculous. So the turnout was low, which tells you that even the Democrat Party was really not all that interested in the race. They weren't engaged. They weren't out doing their door-to-door. And so, you know, I mean, that one, yeah, you get what you deserve. You don't go to the polls. You get to put up with whatever else everybody else votes for. And in the case of Mamdani, you're about to find out. But we're going to get to that and a lot more a little bit later on.
Yeah, I just look at what's happened on the national level when we've elected, first of all, Clinton. How bad can it be? Oh, wait. And then we had the melees, you know, the complete doldrums that we fell into, and people jerked back from that for several years. And then we elected Obama and elected him a second time. Are we really sure that was a mistake? Yeah, that was a horrible mistake. We keep, you know, the pendulum keeps going back and forth.
Yeah, but even so, let's talk about the Obama effect for a minute. He started out super, super radical, right? A lot, in many ways, though kind of muted. He ran his race very similar to what Mamdani did. I mean, there were some really radical proposals like this one. Everybody should remember this.
Under my plan of a cap and trade system, electricity rates would necessarily skyrocket. Even, you know, regardless of what I say about whether coal is good or bad, because I'm capping greenhouse gases, coal-powered plants, you know, natural gas, you name it, whatever the plants were, whatever the industry was, they would have to retrofit their operations. That will cost money. They will pass that money on to consumers.
Okay, now, does everybody remember that? I mean, that was I don't even know if he had been elected yet. But that was a speech, like it was, and if you watch the video, go look it up. The video is really, really bad. He's sitting behind a desk, and he's clearly not elected yet. It's just a campaign, speech is what he's giving. And he went from that, and again, we fought over cap and trade for a little bit, but the further he got in his presidency, he kind of, in a way, sort of moderated a little bit. Yeah, he's still pretty radical, but it wasn't we're going to shut down coal plants and, you're going to pay exponentially higher, electricity rates. But he had to moderate too. And Clinton, same thing. Okay, so the first 4 years of Clinton, kind of radical. But then it was explained to him that he's not going to win re-election if he doesn't come to the middle. And that's when he got with Newt Gingrich, and they started the process of balancing the budget. So, smart politicians, they moderate towards the middle. They start out with really radical proposals, and they realize that they're probably going to end up losing the next election. And you would think that politicians would learn. But what radical Democrat politicians have learned is that radical policies sometimes get them elected.
I don't think Obama necessarily moved to the center at all.
A little bit.
I think the messaging did.
Okay.
Look
All right,
at,
fair enough. Fair point.
Yeah, he learned that we can't come directly at you and tell you what we're going to do. So he created what they call the Affordable Care Act. How's that working out for you?
Well, it's extraordinarily affordable.
Yeah.
Just ask Nancy Pelosi and Chuck U. Schumer.
And why is the government shut down right now? Specifically because of how much that costs.
Exactly. All right, so we're going to get to all things Zoran Mamdani a little bit later, but there's some important news that we need to cover right out of the gate. And from justthenews.com, I know I just finished trashing a piece of theirs, but this one's important. It's entitled, Mike Johnson Backs Senate Filibuster as Trump Calls for Ending It. And I'm sure we've all heard the soundbite, or maybe you haven't heard the soundbite of Trump saying we need to get rid of the filibuster. I think it's a really bad idea to keep it. In fact, I've got that. I think I've got that video. Hold on just a second, and I think I can play that for you just to refresh your memory. Maybe not. Let me look. All right, so I don't have it. Oh, here it is. Trump, look much looking better. I think it's in this one.
With state and local elections coming up Tuesday, we asked the president about the highly anticipated mayoral race that includes former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo and Zoran Mamdani.
Zoran Mamdani, 34-year-old Democratic socialist. He's the
communist, not socialist, communist.
See, we can't get away from him. But that wasn't the soundbite I was looking for. But anyway, in that interview, he suggests that we ought to do away with the Senate filibuster. Well, here's what the piece from justthenews.com says. Now, House Speaker Mike Johnson on Monday expressed support for the Senate filibuster as President Donald Trump supported ending it in order to pass key legislation. Quote, I understand desperate times call for desperate measures. I also understand that traditionally we've seen that as an important safeguard, Johnson said. As much as I've wanted to blow up the filibuster sometimes as a House member when we're not getting what we wanted done in our agenda, I hear Senate Republican colleagues, some of them the most conservative people in Congress, who say it's an important safeguard, he added. It prevents us, it holds us back from the Democrats' worst impulses. So what is the Senate filibuster? It requires a 60-vote threshold to get legislation moved to the floor. So if you don't have 60 votes, you're not even talking about it. So, and just to reiterate that, in the Senate, before you can even really debate a bill or have a vote on it or anything, you got to get 60 people to agree with you. Now, what if we didn't have that? Well, last Congress, the Democrats would have been able to push through anything they wanted. All they would need is 51 votes, and that's it. And so a lot of the worst fears that you have of Democrats' ideas would probably come true. Okay, so it's an impediment to what we want to do. It's an impediment to getting the government back open. That's true. But it's also an important safeguard. You see, the wheels of government were never meant to move quickly. When things move fast, really bad things happened. Like Ken mentioned the Affordable Care Act. That was passed, I believe, on Christmas Eve. And it was just pushed through in a budget reconciliation bill. So I'm pretty sure that's how that happened. But the filibuster, super important. Now, we have a version of that in Wyoming, and we're about to experience it in the upcoming session. During the budget session, for any bill that is not budget related, and Ken, define for me budget related. What is it? I mean, can it be something that just spends money, or does it have to relate specifically to the budget?
That's a pretty gray area lately. The last several sessions, there have been a lot of kind of legislating within the budget, that sort of thing. Well, it's a budget year, so we have to do it as an amendment to the budget bill instead of as a standalone. So there are a lot of games with that. But it's interesting that the most vocal opponent to this safeguard is Steve Harshman.
Mm-hmm.
He continually gets up
Every
there.
year.
We got to get rid of this stupid 66%. We got to get rid of this 2/3. That's just not right. Yeah, it's holding you back.
Right. And if you remember 2 sessions ago, the very first thing that the conservatives did, and again, we didn't have the majority 2 sessions ago, but we had enough votes to prevent any piece of legislation not budget related from going to the floor. The very first one that we killed was the capital construction bill.
Yeah, and it wasn't that we didn't think some of that construction should happen. It was that it was an all or nothing deal. And we wanted to break it apart and have each thing be a standalone bill, because there were some things on there that were justifiable. There were some things on there that maybe not so much. And we just thought it'd be reasonable to let's talk about each one of them independently and go from there. And man, you'd have thought we just had elected a socialist or something.
Yeah, you would have thought you killed the golden calf, killed the golden goose, and any offspring that it would have had. The media went absolutely bonkers. I remember there was a big headline on the Cowboy that said, Freedom Caucus kills 13 committee bills or something like that, as if that was the end of the world. Well, a lot of the rules exist in both the Wyoming legislature and at the federal level to protect the rights of the minority. And every deliberative body, whether it's your city council or your county commissioners, or if it's the legislature or the U.S. Congress, they operate on a set of rules. For lower deliberative bodies, so city council, county commissioners, they work off of what's called Robert's Rules of Order. You've heard of it. And so and the reason you use that is to keep a meeting orderly and that it protects the rights of the minority. There are certain things the minority can do, even if they don't possess enough votes to push something through. Now, in the legislature, they use Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure. It's pretty much the same thing. There are a few nuanced differences in it, but essentially it's the same thing. And those rules exist to protect the minority voices in the chamber.
It's much same thing, but much more expensive.
It is. Absolutely. I couldn't believe it the first time I tried to buy a copy of Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedure. It was like $500 or some ridiculous number like that. But anyway, so this upcoming session is a little bit different. The shoe is sort of on the other foot. Conservatives in the House of Representatives do not possess 2/3 of the votes. Possess is probably the wrong word. They don't have 2/3 of the votes. And so the Redcoats and the Democrats, they could stop any bill that they want. And so I think what's probably going to happen is a lot of gridlock, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Like I mentioned before, the wheels of government are meant to work slowly. They're not meant to go fast. And a lot of times, doing nothing is preferable to doing anything. Now, if you've got gridlock, at least nothing will change. Of course, you don't fix anything, but there again, does government ever really fix anything? And so when you look at the government shutdown, the so-called government shutdown that we're in right, interestingly enough, Ken, you'll get a kick out of this one. So I'm starting another business with a friend of mine. I've been telling you about it. It's called the Open Range Record. And so I went to apply for an EIN. Well, first, I had a little disagreement with my business partner. And I told them, I said, no, the government shut down. I can't get an EIN number right now. We just have to wait. And we had a little bit of an argument. And I said, okay, well, I will try. And so maybe I've got let's see here. You know what? During the break, I'll find that picture of it. But it turns out, and I should tell you that getting an EIN number is something that happens entirely online. All you do is you fill out an online form, and then it spits it out automatically. You don't even have to talk to a person.
It takes less than 2 minutes. I've got several of them.
Yeah. It's really, really, really easy to do. But because of the government shutdown, apparently even the internet in Washington, D.C. doesn't work. So during the break, remind me, Ken, and I'll go find that. Here it is. There we go. Mason's Manual of Legislative Procedures. So it wasn't 500. It was 165. But still.
That's a used copy.
That's a used copy. Okay.
On Amazon.
And it's probably not the updated one either. Yeah. So anyway, fortunately, I have some friends in the legislature that help me out. So anyway, the filibuster is really, really important, and it's certainly something we don't want to get rid of because when we are in the minority, and remember, eventually that's going to happen, but there will be a time when we don't have the majority in Congress. We want to be able to stop any of the radical Democrat plans that they would most certainly push through. And just think about your worst nightmare, right? Going after guns in a big way. There are a lot of anti-gun bills that have been stopped by the Senate filibuster. I don't know, universal basic income. The Democrats would definitely try that. They would attempt to make illegal aliens citizens so that they could get their votes. I mean, a lot of the really bad stuff that most staunch Republicans have nightmares about, all of that would happen without the Senate filibuster. So any of your, if you talk to any of your Congress people, tell them that's a really, really bad idea.
One other thing that's a really bad idea is...
Not watching Cowboy State Politics live?
Well, who would even consider that?
That's a good point, yes.
Yeah. Giving Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico statehood.
Oh, yeah, that's another terrible nightmare.
You just dump 4 senators right there into the mix that are never going to go the other way. That's why they're pressing so hard.
Yeah, they want permanent control of Congress. And, this deal in California, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, that's what that's all about, too. Gaining a permanent majority in Congress. So other important things that are happening in the news, from the Times of Israel, draft UN resolution grants U.S. and partners broad mandate to govern Gaza. Now, you may be on either side of this, but I think this one is an important one to keep your eyes on. And I quote, the Trump administration's draft UN Security Council resolution to establish an international force in Gaza would give the U.S. and other participating countries a broad 2-year mandate to govern Gaza and be in charge of security there. According to a copy of the draft published by the news site, Times of Israel, the so-called International Stabilization Force will be in charge of securing the Gaza Strip's borders with Israel and Egypt, ensuring that the safety of civilians and humanitarian zones, and training new Palestinian police officers who will partner with it. The force's mandate will apparently include disarming Hamas, with the draft saying that the International Security Force will, quote, stabilize the security environment in Gaza by ensuring the process of demilitarizing the Gaza Strip, including the destruction and prevention of rebuilding of the military, terror, and offensive infrastructure inside of Gaza. Now, just imagine what we could do in 2 years in Gaza. Now, right now, but even before the war, Gaza was not a garden spot, and it should be. I mean, it's right on the Mediterranean. I mean, just think about what you could do with that little piece of property. I think Trump once referred to it as he could make it the Riviera of the Middle East. But one of the impediments to doing all of this right now is the terrorist organization Hamas. While the Palestinian Authority, which, and maybe this a little geography lesson is necessary here, the West Bank, or Judea and Samaria, are under the control of the PLO, or the Palestinian, maybe it's not the PLO, but it's under the Palestinian Authority. Okay, essentially, that's the same group as is in charge in Gaza, essentially. Different characters in the same movie. But Hamas, who was voted in to control the Gaza Strip, is the terrorist arm of the Palestinian Authority. And so, even though the peace deal is signed, even though everything is going great, I mean, as far as the peace deal goes, you still have Hamas attacking Israeli troops. And so they are the impediment. History proves that they are not going to stop attacking Israel. They are not going to stop disarming. And so any sort of peace treaty or any sort of, broad peace in the Gaza Strip, which is kind of a misnomer, since the entire Gaza Strip is only about the size of Washington, D.C. It's about 60 square miles. But, so the impediment to that is Hamas. But if this goes through the UN, and I don't know that the UN is necessarily necessary. Maybe they are. But anyway, the plan is for us to control the Gaza Strip, demilitarize it, and turn it into something that's actually livable. Here you go. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so you see that part in the north there? The one that's shaded in gray? That's the Gaza Strip. Okay? So it's a really, really, really tiny area. And about 60 square miles, the size of Washington, D.C., and that is where, and by the way, Israel is not very big either. I mean, it's pretty small.
Yeah, and looking at that map, I don't necessarily know how far across there it is, but it's only like 10 miles or something.
Yeah, it's tiny.
From east to west. But the white section is the Gaza Strip. And that gray that you see up there where it says Gaza, that's a Palestinian settlement. And the color codes for the rest of it. But we're talking about a tiny, tiny area. Tiny.
Actually, I mean, a good comparison to that, the way it was, I heard somebody describe it, is like all of Israel could probably fit between, between Buffalo and Sheridan, give or take a little bit. I mean, it's pretty small. It's a tiny, tiny little country.
Well, just look at the bottom of the bigger part of the map there. You can see the airstrip at the airport. That's the scale of it.
Yeah. I mean, the scale of this thing is huge. So anyway, that's what's happening in Israel. Another, what I think is a great piece of news from the Blaze, deportations have topped 2 million under Trump. Now, you might think, ICE, they're rounding people up. Well, the truth is the 2 million people, most of them have left voluntarily. And I quote, deportations and border security have been a crucial part of the second Trump administration, and 9 months in, the government has started to release some results. Despite seemingly constant obstruction by Democrats, the administration has begun to deliver on its promise of mass deportations. Quote, the president is all about results, and what President Trump, Secretary Noem, have been able to do in 270 days, despite the injunctions, despite the obstruction, is to deport about 2 million illegal aliens. Or excuse me, that's probably an imprecise way to put it. 2 million illegal aliens have left the country since the beginning of Trump's term. And by the way, I've heard numbers as high as like 20 million illegal aliens in the country.
Unfortunately, none of the hosts of The View have joined them.
That's true. That is unfortunate. We're going to hear from them a little bit later too. Well, let's go ahead and take a break. And when we come back, we'll get into this whole Mom Donnie business. We got to do it, my friends. It's going to be painful. But if you listened to him last night, you would have thought he was the second coming. Or maybe he is of Mao Zedong, Joseph Stalin, Vladimir Lenin. Who knows? It's going to be fun times in New York. We'll talk about it in just a second. You are listening to Cowboy State Politics Live. You can listen to the program on YouTube, on Facebook, on X, on Rumble, pretty much everywhere. And now, Cowboy State Politics Live is syndicated on the OBBM network. That's available on Roku, Apple TV, and a whole bunch of other places. It's almost like I'm omnipresent. You can listen to Cowboy State Politics Live every Tuesday through Friday at 8 a.m. You can listen to the Cowboy State Politics podcast anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest place is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles that I might bring up during the course of a program. That way, if your name is Joe Biden and you can't remember if you had your pudding today,
Well, I probably can't help you with that, but I can definitely tell you why you should have never ran for president. And now, back to our program. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live, on a Wednesday, the day after the disastrous election. Like I said, it really wasn't all that disastrous. I mean, things could be worse, right? I suppose, we could have had Mao Zedong elected in New York, or I don't know. I mean, and we're just starting out, so it's really hard to say how bad things are going to be. But it could be kind of terrible. You never know. Anyway, Zoran Mamdani. If you listen to his acceptance speech, again, you would have thought that he was the second coming or something. I mean, who knows? Well, I told you during the break that I'd come up with this picture about the getting the EIN number. Here it is. So we apologize for any inconvenience this may cause, but apply for an EIN number is currently unavailable because of the government shutdown. And again, this is something you do entirely online. It takes 2 minutes. So anyway, there you go. Even the government shutdown. The shutdown even affects the internet. So Zoran Mamdani won, as we all expected he would. And if you listen to his acceptance speech, his victory speech, I marveled, I tell you, Agent 29, at his humility. It was truly incredible how gracious he was to his opponents. I mean, that's what you're supposed to do when you win an election. Be gracious, be humble. Thank you very much. I appreciate the effort. I wish them well. And so here is Zoran Mamdani being extraordinarily humble. It's a video. Go ahead and play the video. Mamdani's humility. Just watch. Watch. You'll be amazed. Maybe. There we go.
The sun may have set over our city this evening, but as Eugene Debs once said, I can see the dawn of a better day for humanity.
Whoa! Hit pause, Ken.
For as long as we can remember.
The dawn of a better day for humanity. It's not for New York. It's all of humanity.
Who's Eugene Debs?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't care.
You and I pretty well know a lot of the history and political things. Neither one of us has any idea who Eugene Debs is, but he mentions Eugene Debs to this audience, and they uproariously applaud. What do they know? We don't know.
We need to find out. What he continues. The humility is coming.
The working people of New York have been told by the wealthy and the well-connected that power does not belong in their hands.
We told the wealthy.
Fingers bruised from lifting boxes on the warehouse floor, palms calloused from delivery bike handlebars, knuckles scarred with kitchen burns.
The knuckles.
These are not hands that have been allowed to hold power.
No, never.
And yet over the last 12 months, you have dared to reach for something greater.
Yes, it's greater than yourself.
Tonight, against all odds, we have grasped it.
Yes, we have grasped ultimate power for humanity.
The future is in our hands. My friends, we have toppled a political dynasty.
Oh, look at that smile.
He looks like a young Saddam
I
Hussein.
wish Andrew Cuomo only the best in private life. But let tonight be the final time I utter his name.
Wow! Push pause.
As we turn the
Let this be the last time I ever utter his name. Are you impressed by the perverse humility? I was just truly astonished.
There's a severe lack of foresight in what he's doing.
Maybe.
Because as things begin to turn south, and they most certainly will,
Yes.
the first thing they normally do is go and blame the previous administrations.
Well, that'll happen with Obama. It happened for 8 years.
He's not going to speak Cuomo's name, so how's that going to happen?
Yeah, well, that's going to turn out really bad for him because when all of his plans topple over, he can't blame anybody because he's never going to utter Andrew Cuomo's name again. But I have not had enough of his graciousness. Hit play again.
Age on a politics that abandons the many and answers only to the few.
Yeah, the many.
New York, tonight you have delivered a mandate for change.
Now listen to the change. Here it comes. Hope and change.
A mandate for a new kind of politics. A mandate for a city we can afford.
Okay, so just push pause. Just for a
And a
second.
mandate for a...
All right, so a mandate for a new kind of politics. Now, what do you suppose he means by that?
I want to take it one word at a time. A mandate. He won with 51%, the last number that I saw.
Not exactly a mandate. Well, let's look here. I bet it's on Fox News.
Yeah, but we need to not lose sight of reality here.
I don't quite have it yet.
Okay.
I mean, the reality is that it was not a landslide election. Let me just see if I can find it real quick.
Don't you love a live show? Especially when we decide to throw something in here.
Okay, so here we go. Oops, maybe. No, that was the New York Times. It won't let me look at that. Paywall. So anyway, what it said before it went, let's see, maybe NBC News will show us. Here we go. Okay, so he won with 50.4% of the vote.
Yeah.
Okay, so not even 51%. So, I mean, that is not exactly a mandate for change.
Also, when you consider the total vote, as we spoke earlier, a very small slice of people.
Yeah, total votes, 2 million out of a city of, what, 7?
Yeah, they ridiculed us when Trump won for using that kind of terminology. So,
well, okay, so I think the point that I was hitting on, though, is he says a new kind of politics. So what exactly does that mean? I mean, we all remember Barack Obama when he, let me just find this for you. You know what?
He said the needs of the many outweigh the few.
Yep.
He didn't say it exactly like Spock did, but that's
pretty much what he meant.
The politics that he's talking about is now the many count and the few don't.
Okay, so listen to this one. Everybody remembers this.
We are 5 days away from fundamentally transforming the United States of America.
Okay, so the big question there was, well, okay, so transforming it into what? Why exactly do you want to fundamentally transform America, and what does that mean? I mean, what are you going to do? Why to fundamentally transform something? It means you change it into a completely different thing if you're going to fundamentally transform it. And so that was the big question there. So with Mamdani, and again, he's only the mayor of New York, so it's not like he won the presidency. It's not like he even won a governorship or even won the attorney general's race in New York. He's the mayor of New York. Now, arguably a pretty powerful position, America's largest city, but he doesn't have that much power to fundamentally transform everything. Of course, he's going to change policies. You're going to have free buses and, government grocery stores. But exactly what does changing into a different type of politics. What does that mean? Well, Zoran Mamdani is an admitted communist. I know. He says democratic socialist. But the truth is, when you say that we're going to seize the means of production, that kind of means that you're a communist. All right, go ahead and finish the video out. I haven't had enough of his humility.
Government that delivers exactly that. On January 1st, I will be sworn in as the mayor of New York City.
All right. Yay, Zoran Mamdani. Well, he's not the first one that has tried to fundamentally change politics, or however he put it. They tried it in Iran. And, okay, that's a country. Zoran Mamdani's the mayor of a city. But I think that a little history lesson here is pretty telling. From the Daily Wire, Iran tried Mamdani's ideas 45 years ago. It ended in ruin. Now, before the Ayatollah took over in Iran was a pretty open country. There weren't any of the dress codes. There weren't any of the having to wear a hijab. There was open trade between Iran and the United States. It was a pretty progressive place, and I don't mean progressive in the Democrat sense.
I've mentioned before that in the late 70s, we seriously considered as a family moving over there. They were doing some things with the telecommunications that would have been there, and that was right before they took the hostages.
Yeah, hindsight's 20/20, there, Agent 29. All right, from the Daily Wire, and I quote, in 1979, Iran's revolutionaries, an alliance of Marxists and Islamists, so Zoran Mamdani, he is a Marxist, he's radical communist, which Karl Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto, and he is a radical Islamist. Several times during the campaign, he was asked to walk back his comments about from the river to the sea and his views on Israel, and he refused to do that. They rose on promises of justice and equality. And in the Mamdani soundbite I'm going to play for you in just a little bit, he says pretty much the same thing. They pledged to give citizens free water, free electricity, and free housing. He also makes some of the same. We're going to have radical rent controls. We're going to have free buses. You see, communists and Marxists, the only thing they really have to offer, and it's illusory anyway, is free stuff. And that's how it always starts. We're going to have free groceries. We're going to have free clothing. We're going to have free housing. It's always free stuff. And if you talk to anybody who emigrated here from a communist country, they will tell you exactly the same thing. I think that there's 3 or 4 interviews that I've done on the podcast talking to people who have emigrated from a communist country to here, and they all say the same thing, that it always starts with free stuff. But none of that, the slogans captured the nation's imaginations in Iran, uniting two ideologies that despised each other but shared the same illusion, that moral purity and government control could replace economic discipline. Within years, the illusion collapsed, inflation exploded, jobs vanished, and the regime they created silenced its own believers. One big thing that happened in Iran is before the Ayatollah took over, there were a huge number of women who were in college. A very large percentage. And right after the Ayatollah gained power, there was virtually zero women in college. Women have no rights, basically no rights in Iran. You're forced to wear a hijab the whole time. So, how many rights could you actually have? Half a century later, in a different world and under a different flag, the same rhetoric echoes in New York City. Zoran Mamdani, now the mayor of New York, or mayor-elect, calls for, quote, people-powered politics and promises free public services, fare-free buses, frozen rents, new programs that would expand government dependency under the banner of compassion. Its playbook, familiar to anyone who has studied revolutionary populism, identify inequality, moralize the problem, and promise paradise without explaining the cost. One of the other things that he's going to mention in this soundbite is that he's going to have community policing. And he has said during the campaign a lot of things that were pretty anti-police. The parallels are truly striking. Now, analysts estimate that making city buses free would erase $700 million a year in revenue. Think about that. Just their buses alone is $700 million to that city. And so to completely eliminate that revenue stream, you can't run a city on nothing. And yet that's precisely what he's proposing to do.
I wonder how he proposes to make up for the lack of taxation income from the mass exodus of decent people leaving.
I
New York
wonder.
City.
I've got a piece in what the governor of Texas is going to do. I'll tell you about that next. But all of these things are truly striking. Now, Ken, go ahead and play the soundbite from Mom Donnie, and I won't make you watch him anymore.
There are many who thought this day would never come, who feared that we would be condemned only to a future of less, with every election consigning us simply to more of the same. And there are others who see politics today as too cruel for the flame of hope to still burn. New York, we have answered those fears.
Okay, pause. All right, so he says we thought we were constrained to a politics of less, and now we've answered all of those fears. With what? I mean, I just told you how he's going to eliminate $700 million in revenue. So let's talk about rent freezes. Theoretically, rent is driven by, supply and demand. If you have a low amount of houses that are available, they're generally speaking of higher price. Right? I mean, you can look at even in Wyoming, any small community, Sheridan, all right, so not all that small, Buffalo, any place. Rent, you're basically looking at $1,000 for a basic apartment. Why? Because there's a shortage of places to live.
If enough people move out of New York, it might actually work for a little while.
It'll work for a little while. But there are other things. So and again, on this free buses idea, the Metropolitan Transportation Authority already loses roughly $1 billion annually to fare and toll evasion. So $1 billion of fares that aren't paid, and free bus rides and hop in the turnstile on the subway, including more than $500 million on buses alone. The Independent Budget Office projects multi-billion-dollar city deficits through 2028. To date, Mom Donnie has offered no serious proposal to offset the hundreds of millions of dollars in lost revenue. Now, this mindset is not new. In 1979, Iran's revolutionaries said oil revenues would pay for everything. In 2025, New York City progressives say the rich will pay for everything. Now, the numbers never add up, but the slogans keep working because they appeal to emotion and not to reason. Now, Ken, you mentioned all the people that are going to leave New York, or that have already left New York. So most of those people are business owners. They're the folks that employ lots of people, that pay lots of taxes, and it doesn't take long for those numbers to add up. All right, go ahead and hit play again.
Tonight we have spoken in a clear voice. Hope is alive.
Hope and change.
Hope is a decision that tens of thousands of New Yorkers made day after day.
Hope,
volunteer
Ken, hope.
shift after volunteer shift, despite attack ad after attack ad.
Yeah, we conquered them all.
More than 1 million of us stood in our churches, in gymnasiums, in community centers, as we filled in the ledger of democracy.
We filled in the ledger
and while
of
we
democracy.
Cast our ballots alone, we chose hope together.
Because that's all you got. You don't have any revenue.
Hope over tyranny. Hope over big money and small ideas. Hope over despair. We won because New Yorkers allowed themselves to hope that the impossible could be made possible.
You notice
and we
all
won
the cliches?
Because we insisted that
he's
no
a little
longer
bit better
would
than
politics be
Kamala.
something that is done to us. Now it is something that we do.
Okay, stop. So he said we just moved from something that was done to us, and now we're moving to us doing. Now, what exactly does he mean? But what is he going to do to everybody? You see, this is the reason why you got to pick apart what these folks say. Because while it is just a long list of cliches, and he never really says anything substantive, which is why he's giving the speech, by the way, because he doesn't really have a plan, and his campaign wasn't really built on any sort of policy prescriptions or anything. It was just built on emotion, on a utopian idea that's never going to work. I'm going to give you free buses. We're going to have government-run grocery stores. But none of those carry with them a policy prescription. The truth is, when you get down to it, he's not going to be able to do any of those things. Just like this article from the Daily Wire points out, that just the bus fares alone So $700 million, that's a huge amount of money. In Wyoming, our last budget that we passed was $11.5 billion, which, by the way, was $2 billion more than the last year. So we're talking about, basically, rough numbers, about 9% of the entire budget. No, 20%, right? It's 11, no, about 10%. So, yeah, $1 billion. 1/10 it takes to run a state is what just one of his ideas is getting rid of. So, in other words, my friends, it's not looking so hot for New York, and I wish them all the luck. But there are some states that are they're already making plans, and we're calling it now the Mamdani effect. Governor Greg Abbott in Texas says he's going to impose a 100% tariff on New Yorkers moving to Texas after the election. And I quote, with the strong possibility that Democratic Marxist Islamist mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani may be elected, of course he was last night, Texas Governor Greg Abbott's sights are squarely on New Yorkers, anticipating the mass escape from New York that might occur with a Mamdani victory. Abbott wrote on X, quote, after the polls close tomorrow night, I will impose a 100% tariff on anyone moving to Texas from New York City. This move fits neatly into Abbott's broader plan of blending culture war politics with aggressive state policy. Over the past year, he's made it clear that leftist ideologies, especially in academia, won't be welcomed in the Lone Star State. Texas is targeting professors who are more focused on pushing leftist ideologies than, so in other words, governors in other states are already preparing for what's going to happen. Now, it's not that a lot of red states wouldn't welcome the business. The problem is with the politics. So you're a person that has had a business in a radically Democrat state for a really long time, and you've lived there putting up with Bill de Blasio and Andrew Cuomo and Kathy Hochul, and it took Zoran Mamdani to chase you out. Now, what are you going to do when you get to a red state and you set up shop there, move your business there, whatever? It's great to move there, but just don't bring your politics with you. And that's the biggest problem. And that's why you've seen a lot of, demonstrably red states start turning purple. And if you look to a good example of that, I think, is Hazard County, just to the south of us in Johnson County. For a long time, it was one of the more conservative counties in the state. It's not anymore. A lot of the folks that I talk to in Johnson County say that the Republican Party is pretty well useless. They don't really do anything. But there are a ton of Democrats that have already moved there. Before I moved to Sheridan, I already knew that 943 people voted for Joe Biden, which is, 25%. And that number is probably only increased. And well, what happens there, one of the reasons for that is folks move from Democrat states to Republican states, and they end up voting the same way.
I'm just wondering if anybody in Wyoming would have voted for Mamdani. Seems like I saw something.
That's a good question,
County.
Ken, and I'm not exactly sure, who would have voted for Mamdani, but maybe a school board member in Laramie would have. Check this out.
My name is Mamdani. M-A-M-D-A-N.
She's on the school board.
Is Mamdani. M-A-M-D-A-N.
One more time.
My name is Mamdani. M-A-M-D-A-N. My name is Mamdani.
Okay, I can't handle it anymore. But yeah, she's on the school board in Laramie. Can you believe that? So there are a number of really, really radical people that do live in Wyoming. And, up until very recently, you could look at the legislature and say, man, it's not red. It's definitely purple.
I would buy that gal a ticket personally.
Yeah. Should we take up a collection?
Take up a collection.
Maybe we should start a GoFundMe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Send this chick to New York where they do things her way.
Yeah, I could probably find a couple of people to write a check for her. Just a one-way ticket to New York. Go there, don't come back. Well, it's a little bit early, but let's go ahead and take our second break, and we'll continue with the program when we come back.
Whether you're tromping through the woods, stalking a big gigantic elk, or tromping through your driveway trying to find your snow shovel, one thing you definitely don't want to forget is your feet. That's right, my friends, there is nothing worse than elk hunting or shoveling your driveway when your feet are a big gigantic frozen block of ice. I suggest you get a pair of socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. They are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. I'm telling you the truth, my friends. I can walk outside of the cabin in a pair of tennis shoes, and it can be 0, it can be below 0, and my feet don't get cold at all. So just get you a pair of Buffalo Wool Company socks. Go to the website, thebuffalowoolco.com. You won't be disappointed. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics. Are you tired of giving your advertising dollars to companies that absolutely despise you? Well, you should be. What they do is they take your money and then they give it to the nearest red-coated rhino Republican that they can find who's going to vote with the Democrats almost the entire time they're in the legislature. You see, you just shouldn't give those people money, and you shouldn't advertise with companies that support them. I have a better idea. Why don't you advertise with a company that aligns with your values? I'd like to ask you to consider advertising on Cowboy State Politics. I have a statewide platform, and nobody is going to beat my advertising rates. Shoot me an email. The address is david@cowboystatepolitics.com. Stop helping the people that hate you and advertise with a company that really does align with your values. Again, that address is david@cowboystatepolitics.com. I would love to get that conversation started with you. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live on a Wednesday. You know, Ken had a great idea during the break, or actually in the last segment. I think we should buy that school board member a plane ticket, to a one-way plane ticket to New York City, and we could do it for around $500.
It'd be kind of like Witchy or Whammy. You know, you go to school on the government dime, and then when you get done, you have to commit to so long. So we'll be glad to pay her way to New York City, but she can't come back for another 25 years. And
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the deal.
Yeah.
You want to go see Mom Donnie so bad, we'll take up a collection for a one-way flight to New York City. All we need, guys, is about $450, and we can get that school board member the heck out of Wyoming.
And if it doesn't come to fruition, we'll buy another camera.
Yeah, indeed. If we don't have enough money to buy you a plane ticket, we'll buy equipment so that we can further convince you to buy a plane ticket. I think $450 is pretty easy to raise. I don't know. But, you know, the question is, I think there's a larger question about the Democrat Party. Now, I don't know that I necessarily agree with this, but there's a piece in Breitbart, and it's claiming that the Mamdani victory is spelling the end of the Democrat Party as we know it. Okay, so let's talk about this. According to Breitbart, quote, House Majority Whip Tom Emmer told Breitbart News his views of New York City Mayor-elect Mamdani's win reflects a broader shift he believes is underway inside the Democrat Party. Kami Mamdani's win in New York City, quoting now, marks the death of the Democrat Party as we once knew it. His communist agenda will run America's largest city straight into the ground, while Democrats in Congress sit idly by because they either agree or are too terrified of their virulent base to speak up. The election results in New York City proved the trend that we've all been witnessing. Pro-terrorist, Marxist radicals are now the left's mainstream. Now, ask yourself, who exactly
on your list of people that could run for the Democrat nomination for president. I mean, can you name a single person that has a viable chance in getting that? Okay, so Kamala Harris has said, yeah, she'll probably run, or she's thinking about it, or whatever. We know that Gavin Newsom is probably going to make an attempt. But the truth is, neither of those candidates are really all that viable. Oh, I mean, if you had a terrible candidate on the Republican side, maybe they would have a chance. But we're talking about J.D. Vance, probably. Maybe Marco Rubio. But when you look at the backbench of the Republican Party, it's way deeper than anybody on the Republican side or on the Democrat side. Think about it. You've got people like Newsom, Nancy Pelosi, she's on her way out. Chuck U. Schumer, he's probably not going to be around very much longer if AOC runs for Senate. Now, I think perhaps the Democrat Party in New York City might be over, but I don't know about the Democrat Party more largely. However, there is some polling that indicates that maybe Representative Emmer is onto something. Now, I've got a video of CNN's pollster. I really like this guy. I think that he's at least honest. He's the one honest bright spot at the Communist News Network. But this one, it's pretty telling. Go ahead and play it. This one's called Democrats Are Historically Divided.
Democrats at this point are historically divided. It is a complete and utter mess. It is messier than a hoarder's basement. What are we talking about here? The national early poll leader, 25% plus. Normally, that's where Democrats are. Biden was at 25% plus in 2020. Hillary Clinton was in 08 and 16. Gore was in 00 and 04. At this particular point, there is no one in the Democratic race for president who's polling at 25% plus. The water is quite warm. If you're a Democrat potentially thinking about running in 2028, jump right in, because at this point, there is no front runner.
What do you think? Is that because how people view the Democratic Party right now, is that contributing to this?
Yeah, I think that is in large part of what's going on, is one of the reasons why there is no front runner. Nobody wants to put anybody up at the top of their ballot list, is because at this particular point, the Democratic brand is in the basement. It is total and complete garbage in the mind of the American public. The Democratic Party's net favorable rating, record lows in all three. Wall Street Journal, 30 points underwater. CNN, 26 points underwater. Gallup, 26 points underwater. And that is being driven in large part by discontent within the Democratic base. The Democratic base wants something different. We'll ultimately end up seeing who they choose. It'll be quite the thing who ultimately gets the rose.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there's two things there that he pointed out. First, that out of all of the people in the Democrat Party that have run for president at this point in the I guess current presidency, all of those people had an approval rating of at least 25% or higher. Now, still, that's pretty low when only a quarter of the electorate views you favorably. But remember, you only have to have 50% plus one vote. Now, the other thing, so nobody's got 25%. Now, the other thing that Harry Enton, that's the pollster's name, is saying is that the Democrat Party as a whole are completely underwater. Right now, according to the Wall Street Journal, they're 30 points underwater. And so there isn't even any approval rating of the Democrat Party at large that would suggest anybody could run for president. At this point, John Fetterman could file to run, and he would probably have a better chance of winning the presidency than anybody else. And just look at the people, the prominent Democrats. So they had to trot out Barack Obama to help their gubernatorial candidates win. So Barack Obama can't run for president again. Hillary Clinton, she's too old. Gavin Newsom's not going to win. Kamala Harris can't string two sentences together, much less two words together. And so there's nobody on the Democrat side that even has a chance.
Nancy Pelosi can't keep her teeth in.
That's true. That's true. We'll get to Nancy, her teeth, and her bottle of vodka in a little bit. But the point here is that this may very well, I guess maybe foretell the end of the Democrat Party. But I think the only place that you really want to count everybody out is in New York. Because what's going to happen in a couple of short years is one of two things. Either A, Mamdani is going to figure out that that none of his policies can actually be put into place. Like logistically, he may try to make the buses all free. He may try to have government-run food stores, but those aren't going to last very long. Within 2 years, he's going to realize that all of those are a loser, and if he wants to get reelected, he's going to have to make some changes. Now, whether he does or not, I mean, that's another question altogether. But right now, nationally, I don't think there is a prominent Democrat that could run for president. Now, keep in mind, we're talking about 2028, so we're only 270 days into Trump's second term, not even a year into his first year of this presidency. We've still got 3 more to go. And so, I mean, that's a long time. I mean, there are some people in the Democrat Party that given 3 years, they could build up enough momentum to make a run. Maybe
Barack did it.
Yeah, Barack Obama did it. He went from nothing to president pretty quick. Of course, he was a senator, though.
That's true, but you might also have been the mayor of New York.
Well, okay, fair point. So, 3 years, that's plenty of time. Could happen. But right now, Democrat Party definitely in the toilet. Now, where they are making some headway, and I think this is partially due to the ineptness of the state Republican Party right now. Yeah, you heard me say it. The Wyoming GOP is not really doing a whole heck of a lot. I'm not talking about at the county level. There are some counties that are doing great. But as far as at the state level, yeah, not really, which is allowing the Wyoming Democrat Party, who, by the way, they only have 8 people in the legislature. But just take their turnout of all of these No Kings protests as an example. Now, I wasn't there. I didn't count how many people were on the courthouse steps at the last protest, but there was at least a couple of hundred people there, at least. So wait a minute. That is in an off year. The weather wasn't exactly warm, and you can't. It's actually pretty hard to get people to go out in public and hold up a sign. Most of the other protests they had throughout the summer, maybe there was 50 people there, maybe at most. But this last one, they had a couple of hundred, and I attribute that to the advertising that the Democrat Party in Wyoming is running. They've got new leadership. Lucas Freilich, I actually kind of like him. He's a radical Democrat, but at least he's cordial. But the Democrat Party in Wyoming's been making some moves, and I mean there could be some races that they're competitive in.
Yeah, they had 200 people and a dog.
They did have the dog that was pooping on their protest. At least the dog knows how. I mean, the dog knows better than all those Democrats what this No Kings protest is. But my point is that nationally, all right, the Democrats might be in the toilet. But in local elections, I don't think that I would discount them. If you're running for did you hear about the mayor of Evansville resigning? Did you hear about that one, Ken?
I did. Good riddance.
Good riddance to her. Miss travel to Tibet and screw over a
Nepal,
innkeeper.
wasn't it?
What's that?
I think it was actually Nepal.
Nepal. Yeah, not Tibet. Sorry, Nepal, Tibet. I mean, I don't know the difference. So Candace Machado was the mayor of Evansville. And, she went to Nepal, rented a room, screwed over the innkeeper. I've got video and text messages of her doing it. But she resigned. All right. Now, what are the chances that she runs against Kevin Campbell in that district? Now, I don't know what the vote margin was in that race, but I would imagine that if Candace Machado got elected mayor, that it's not exactly an uber conservative district, and it is in the middle of Casper. So, there might be a chance there. I hope not. She's a terror, but anyway, one more piece on Mom Donnie, and then we're going to move on. I mentioned throughout the campaign he refused to walk back his comments about Israel. Well, according to Breitbart News, and they talked to a so-called informal Mom Donnie advisor, that Mom Donnie's views on Israel were crucial to getting him support. Now, this is an interesting one because they don't really go into it too much. But here's what it says: "Quote: During a portion of an interview with PBS aired on Monday's PBS NewsHour, Patrick Gaspard, an informal advisor to the campaign of Zoran Mondani, said that his views on Israel and Gaza are, quote, almost like the point of entry into the conversation. And people are willing to listen to him talk about these things that matter, like public education, policing, quality of life, after hearing about how he stands on Israel. NewsHour correspondent William Brangham said that, quote, Patrick Gaspard has advised several New York mayors and is an informal advisor to the Mamdani campaign. He says that Mamdani's position on Gaza is not the political drag some analysts believe, noting that polls show more than 70% of Democrats oppose providing additional economic and military support to Israel. Now, a couple of things here. First, it tells you that Mamdani is a radical, that he really is an Islamist, and he does have some very anti-Israel views. But the second thing it tells you, if this guy is correct, is that the Democrat base is very much anti-Israel. And people like John Fetterman, who he's been very supportive of Israel, they're really kind of in the minority. So it also tells you that the Democrat base has moved farther to the left than they were, I would say, even 2 years ago. And according to this guy, Mamdani's views on Israel were central to getting him even in the conversation, which, by the way, I shouldn't have to tell you, that's a terrifying prospect, that's where the conversation starts. Let's see. We already talked about that one. Oh, Jim Comey. I've been waiting for this one. Oh, boy. According to Just the News, Comey expected to work for President-elect Clinton. And if you haven't been paying attention, there's some handwritten notes that he, we'll just say, mistakenly left in a safe, that written in his own hand, that pretty much shows he knew that Hillary Clinton was going to try to gin up this whole Russia hoax against Donald Trump. And I quote, federal prosecutors revealed Monday that they have unearthed a trove of personal emails showing that then FBI Director Jim Comey openly talked in the days before the election that he expected to be working soon for President-elect Hillary Clinton and was being kept apprised by a top aide on efforts to anonymously provide information to the news media. One of those emails said, quote, well done, my friend. Who knew this would be so much fun? Comey wrote in an early November 2016 email after then FBI Special Government employee Dan Rickman briefed the FBI director on Rickman's effort to provide information and guidance to the New York Times on an article involving Clinton's email scandal. The emails were referenced in a bombshell court filing by acting U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan and her deputy, Tyler Lemons, in which the government rejected Comey's argument that said that he was being maliciously prosecuted for misleading Congress about his actions. That's what Comey's been saying. This is a witch hunt. I didn't really do anything, except, of course, that he did. Here's a piece from justthenews.com about all of these unearthed documents. James Comey, Just the News. Watch this.
All right, let's get down to some big bombshell news that just moved a couple of minutes ago over at justthenews.com. We've been following the story of James Comey. He's indicted for lying to Congress, saying he never authorized any of his staff to leak to the media. And late last week, as we told you, he played the victim card. I'm being maliciously prosecuted because Donald Trump hates me. Well, today, the Kash Patel FBI and the lead attorney prosecuting his case, Lindsay Halligan, well, they responded, and they responded with a lot of evidence. What did they respond with? James Comey's own emails and his own handwritten notes. And what do they show? They show that James Comey was clearly aware that his top aide was providing information anonymously to the news media. Not only was he aware of it, he wrote in a private email, good job, my friend, actually congratulating him when Dan Richman, one of his top lieutenants, told him what he had just done with the New York Times. Yes, just like the indictment said, the story is about Hillary Clinton's email, so it backs up the government's case that Comey was authorizing leaks to through his staff to reporters concerning a Hillary Clinton case, just like they argued. But they went a little bit further. It turns out that when Kash Patel found those burn bags in that secret room where a whole bunch of FBI evidence was sitting, they found something special, some handwritten notes by James Comey. What do those handwritten notes show? He appeared to be aware in September 2016 that of the U.S. intelligence intercept that Hillary Clinton had approved a plan to hang a fake Russian shingle on Donald Trump's house, campaign house. Now, that's important because the handwritten notes don't match with James Comey's testimony. James Comey told Congress, that doesn't sound familiar. I don't think I ever knew about that. He wrote about it in his hand notes. And finally, one will ask, well, why would James Comey do this? What was the motive? Today's emails that were just released in the court filing give us one other answer. He wrote to Dan Richmond, his lieutenant, that he fully expected soon to be working for President-elect Hillary Clinton. That's right from the emails.
All right. So handwritten notes that contradict exactly what Jim Comey told Congress. So, I mean, he's been indicted on that one charge, and it looks like he absolutely knew. And, you know, I mean, it's just more evidence that the Russia hoax was exactly that there really was never anything to it, that they used the Steele dossier as a predicate to get all their spying done, that all of their FISA warrants, and I believe, and there were 4 of those that Jim Comey himself signed off on. And so it just gets deeper. And, you know, I made the comment, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, but that it's overdue for some handcuffs. And if any of this were conservatives, they'd be perp walked out in front of all the cameras. In fact, some of them were. A couple of Trump aides, at least one of them, and I always forget his name, but he was arrested at an airport and shackled and hauled off to jail. Lots of Trump people went to jail for either refusing a subpoena or or just absolutely just refusing to testify. And so the question is, what would happen if it were conservatives that did all this? That it could be proven that absolutely lied to Congress, that knew all this was happening. Those people would never see the light of day. They'd be marched in front of a judge like Boasberg. They'd be locked up and they'd throw away the key. The truth is, my friends, until very recently, and I'm not convinced that we're at this point yet, but until very recently, we had a very tipped justice scale. That, if you were a Democrat, you could pretty much get away with anything. Bringing an 8-ball into the White House, or if you're the then vice president, extorting another country with $1 billion, all of that, fair game. But if you're a conservative, well, and you happen to be on restricted grounds on January 6th, well, you're going to jail for months on end. I hope that we've turned the corner and that we're getting back to, evening out the scales of justice. I mean, I hope that's where we're getting. And some people are going to have to go to jail for that to happen. Jim Comey. I mean, there's a whole bunch of others people. Hillary Clinton. I mean, there's and remember, it was Jim Comey who said no reasonable prosecutor would prosecute her for her emails. Now, wait a minute. She was only the Secretary of State, right? She couldn't declassify anything, and she had classified documents on a private server. But they raided Trump's home looking for it. Joe Biden did exactly the same thing, had classified documents in his garage next to his Corvette that Hunter Biden probably drooled all over. But nothing happened to them. But if your name is Donald Trump, well, then they're going to raid your wife's underwear drawer, which, I mean, that absolutely happened. And I mean, it's just absolutely amazing. I hope that we're turning the corner and that people get prosecuted the way that they should. From the Daily Caller, Obama judge's bid to help the deep state spy on the GOP in secret may have violated federal law. And we're talking about Boasberg, the guy that I just referred to. Now, he's also the guy that had several cases assigned to him when he wasn't even an assigning judge. Weird how that happens. But, quoting, an Obama-appointed judge may have violated federal law by greenlighting a Biden Department of Justice effort to secretly secure Republican senators' private cell phone data, according to legal experts. Chief Judge of the D.C. District Court, James Boasberg, signed orders in 2023 preventing cell phone carriers from notifying 11 Republican members of Congress about the special counsel Jack Smith's subpoenas seeking their cell phone data from January 4th and January 7th. The subpoenas were part of Smith's investigation to build his 2020 election case against President Donald Trump. They sought, quote, detailed call records for inbound and outbound calls, text messages, direct connect, and voicemail messages from Republican members, though he didn't request contents of any messages. The judge claimed that disclosing the subpoenas could result in destruction of or tampering with evidence to justify keeping them hidden. Now, Ted Cruz talked about this a little bit. We've got a soundbite of what Senator Cruz said. He's talking about Boasberg. Go ahead and play that for us, Ken.
I am right now calling on the House of Representatives to impeach Judge Boasberg. Judge Boasberg put his robe down, stood up, and said, "Sign me up to be part of the partisan vendetta against 20% of the Republicans in the Senate." That is a dereliction of duty and a violation of the judicial oath. And I want to thank Chairman Grassley and Chairman Johnson for pursuing this tenaciously like a dog on a bone. We are going to get the answers of every person who signed off on this abuse of power, and mark my words, there will be accountability for these zealots who wanted to corrupt the Department of Justice and corrupt the judiciary in order to try to attack their enemies list.
And that's exactly what they did. 20% of the Republicans in Congress, so there was 11 of them, or 10 of them, and one member of the House of Representatives. And included in that was Senator Cynthia Lummis. And she didn't really, as far as I can remember, she didn't really have anything to do with January 6th. I don't think that she was on, I don't remember her being on any of those important committees. So the question is, why was Jack Smith targeting those senators? Well, I think one reason is Cynthia Lummis is from a pretty Republican state. That's probably the only reason. And if you'll remember in the last interview I did with Representative Hageman, she said she thinks that this is just the wiretaps and subpoenas that they know of. That she wants to know. She said a better question was, who didn't they surveil? And with no reason whatsoever. And you're talking about sitting U.S. senators, people who have, top secret security clearances, who can see highly sensitive documents. They can go into a SCIF and see the most secret documents that our country has. And it was a rogue prosecutor that subpoenaed their phone records. Now, these orders could violate a federal law if they involved an official phone line. Mike Fregoso, who served as the chief counsel to former Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell, noted, federal law states that communications providers for Senate offices shall not be barred through operation of any court order or any statutory provision from notifying the Senate office of any legal process seeking disclosure of the Senate data. Quote, if Smith or Boasberg violated that statute, it's a very serious problem that probably justifies a Barr investigation and could predicate an impeachment inquiry. So it is Boasberg's order preventing the senators from knowing that their communications were being spied on. That's the law that got broken. And just think about the charge or the accusation that was made, that they're going to destroy evidence. If there's no reason to make that order, if there's no evidence to suggest that might happen, that's an outrageous accusation. That are there sitting U.S. senators that would destroy evidence? Absolutely. But are these 10 U.S. senators the people that are going to destroy it? And I would argue that there's no evidence to support that. And I think the test case on that one is Cynthia Lummis. She really didn't have all that much to do with any of it, aside from maybe being on a committee. But as far as that goes, nothing there. Well, in any case, I think the guy needs to be impeached, though here's the problem with that. It's never going to get through the Senate. Because remember, it's the House that brings charges. It's the Senate that holds the trial. And Republicans, though they do have a majority in the Senate, that includes some pretty wobbly senators. And impeaching a judge, that's something that doesn't happen very often. So the chances of him actually getting impeached, pretty low, I would say. Let's go ahead and take our last break. And then when we come back, I'm going to tell you what happens when we allow our country to focus on multiculturalism instead of being a melting pot. There's a terrifying story out of Michigan, Dearborn, Michigan. I've been talking about that a lot recently, but I've got a terrifying result. Thank God it was stopped, but I'll tell you about it in just a second. I know it feels like it's going to be 60 degrees for the entire winter. But you'd be wrong, my friends. Sooner or later, probably sooner, all of that white crap is going to start flying around, and all of your fun summertime playthings that you spent way too much money on, that little side-by-side that you spent $80,000 on, I wouldn't buy one of those. But if you did, you definitely don't want it living in a giant snowbank for the next 7 months. You could prevent that incredibly unfortunate circumstance simply by calling my friends Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. They are the experts in metal building construction. They've been doing it longer than anybody else around, and they do a much better job. So, to prevent yourself from spending a whole bunch of money next spring on repair bills, just call Marcos and Jesse. Their phone number is 307-674-2532, or you can check them out at their website, mortonbuildings.com. Are you one of those people that said something like this before Trump became president?
I have a house in Spain that is going to be ready right after the election. Siberia.
Nova Scotia.
I'm definitely moving to Canada. Straight to hell. Iceland. France.
Asia's pretty cool.
And has the past 5 weeks just been more than you could bear? If that's the case, you have come to the right place. All you need to do is call my friend Rebecca Bextel at Compass Real Estate. She has her fingers on the pulse of the real estate market all across the state of Wyoming. Last year, she sold around $30 million worth of property. Everything from small residential properties all the way up to big giant ranches. So if you've got to get the heck out of Dodge, if you've got to be gone Johnson because you can't stand that Trump is the president, call Rebecca Bextel. Her phone number is 307-699-3519. Let me say that one more time for you in case you missed it. 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day. I'm only gonna get stronger.
Welcome back to the program, my friends. Cowboy State Politics Live on a Wednesday. Make sure that you keep watching Cowboy State Politics Live tomorrow on the program. We're going to have an interview with current president of the University of Wyoming, Ed Seidel. I've been looking forward to this conversation. It's been a couple months in the making, and so we're going to interview him today, and we'll bring you that discussion tomorrow. It should be a good show. Looking forward to talking with him. He doesn't give a lot of interviews, so I think this is going to be a really good time. One more thing on Agent 29's belt that he was able to set up, so good job there. So often I tell you about the difference between our country being a melting pot and one that focuses on multiculturalism. Multiculturalism is the idea that all cultures have value and that we should allow all cultures to exist in our country instead of taking the good things from different cultures and then blending them all together to create one American culture. Now, multiculturalism, I mean, it sounds like an obscure idea, one that's pretty hard to put our fingers on, but let me give you an example of what happens when we don't view our country as a melting pot. And this is from the Daily Caller. Michigan Muslim preacher helped radicalize a teen co-conspirator in a Halloween terrorist plot. Now, just listen to this. This is, thank God they caught this guy, but just listen to this. A teen accused of helping to plan a terrorist attack on Halloween in Michigan was a follower of an extremist Dearborn-based Islamic preacher, according to the FBI. The unnamed juvenile co-conspirator in the plot reposted content from a local, quote, Islamic ideologue on social media that consulted the man's father on when to conduct the attack before federal agents made arrests on Friday. The FBI alleged in a Saturday complaint. The FBI referenced research from a think tank that identifies the man as Ahmad Musa Jibril, an ISIS supporter whom the FBI previously named as an ideological inspiration for others, convicted in an ISIS funding scheme in New York. The DOJ announced charges on Friday against two Michigan men who allegedly planned the pro-ISIS attack involving AR-style rifles, at least they're not calling them assault rifles anymore, shotguns, handguns, and other tools for tactical assault on Halloween. The FBI's complaint described alleged conversations and planning steps involving the juvenile and two other unnamed co-conspirators. Let's see here. There's one part. Okay, here we go. The younger Jibril posted a video on X, and this is the part that I really want you to pay attention to. Posted a video in January in which he said quote, a day will come when Muslims will dismantle the cross and burn the Christmas trees in the lands the Muslims that they will liberate. Quote, when they liberate, they will also govern by Sharia of Allah with no compromise, no excuses, and with unwavering resolve. Now think about that. Now this is, okay, so he's a teen and he's posting this video. But where did he get that from? Well, it was from the radical preacher. And the radical preacher was advising the kid's dad on when and how to conduct this attack. And it's not just, hey, go kill a bunch of people. I mean, that's terrible. But the other part is we will govern by Sharia of Allah. Where do you think he got that from? Now, he could have got it off the internet. I mean, that's possible. But the indictment clearly says that he got it from that local radical preacher. And this is in a town in the United States, Dearborn, Michigan, which has been overrun and is pretty much governed by Muslims. So this is happening in the United States. We're not talking about this kid being in the middle of Tehran and being, convinced to go wear a suicide vest. No. He was going to wear a suicide vest in Michigan on Halloween and kill a bunch of little kids. This is a perfect example of the problems that multiculturalism creates, because you're allowing an entire culture, one that obviously is teaching people that we ought to govern our society with Sharia law. I mean, this is antithetical to everything that our legal system, that our culture, that everything is based on. It is absolutely the opposite, which, by the way, is kind of similar to the rhetoric from the new mayor of New York. So, anyway, that one should terrify the absolute crap out of you. And, be on the lookout for it, my friends. And now, something a little bit different. From the Daily Mail, J.D. Vance declares himself a UFO lunatic as he vows to pull back the curtain on government secrets. And I quote, Vice President J.D. Vance has joined a long list of high-ranking government officials wanting answers about UFOs and extraterrestrials. In an interview released Wednesday, the Vice President doubled down on his promise to get to the bottom of the existence of alien life.
The truth is out there.
The truth is out there, my friends. Vance happily declared himself a UFO lunatic, and was committed to taking some time during his term in office to examine the evidence that he has access to regarding life on other planets. His comments came nearly 3 months after he told the hosts of the Ruthless podcast that he was obsessed with the whole UFO thing. At the time, Vance said he planned to use his time off during the August recess in Congress to do a little deep dive into the government's files on what the military now calls unidentified anomalous phenomenon, or UAPs. UFOs, I guess that has too many connotations to it. Now we have to call them unidentified anomalous phenomenon. It's fun to say, and it might even be more fun to know exactly what the government has. I mean, there have been a lot of videos that are posted online of, and who knows? If it's online, it must be true, right? But there are a lot of videos that were allegedly released by the Department of Defense of flying objects doing things that are physically impossible, according to, our conception of physics. But who knows? I mean, Ken, do you think that there's life on other planets?
I think that's two different questions. I did have a UFO experience myself.
You did? I'm dying to hear about it.
I did. And there's not much to tell. It was just watching something moving across the sky that
Did you get abducted? Is that what's wrong with you?
No. I tried. I waved.
You waved. Okay.
Yeah. Watching this light, which was not moving like a plane, could have been anything. And then all of a sudden it just took off.
Just zoomed away.
Ridiculously hyper speed. I have no idea what it was. It appeared to be very far off, but we don't know. And then I have an uncle who's also one of these very sound, nothing ever rifles him. And
yeah,
he bailed off his tractor one day and ran all the way back to the house because he had seen something that scared the living poo out of him. Anyway, unidentified flying objects is pretty vague, especially when now we have all kinds of things flying around, maybe owned by this or that organization.
Yeah, well, think about all the drones that were flying around. I mean,
yeah, so that gets to be a pretty broad term. So I don't know what it was you called that other one. But
unidentified anomalous phenomenon. I mean, it is, you got to admit, it's fun to say.
Not for me.
Anomalous phenomenon.
I'll never get there.
But I mean, think about it. I think that if there aren't other forms of life in the universe, it's a heck of a waste of space. And it makes sense that at least it makes sense to me, that somewhere out in the universe that there's something else.
They're going by us in a cigar-shaped comet.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. That is happening. Maybe it's V'ger.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, Bill Clinton has ruined the concept of cigar-shaped for the rest of my days.
Oh, now that's true. You don't like to smoke cigars. I went to the cigar shop and purchased a couple of nice cigars. And I asked Ken, like, hey, do you know anything about cigars? And he said, nope, except that I like to chew on them. So me and a former friend smoked cigars, and Ken chewed on his cigar. It's a heck of a lot more fun to chew on. But this whole UFO business, imagine the implications if there are. And there have been a lot of headlines that have come out that I was kind of shocked that I didn't see them on the front page of, the New York Times or the Washington Post. Aliens exist. Think about the revelation. I mean, that would be, on par with some of the most incredible discoveries in our world. That, hey, the Earth revolves around the sun and not the reverse. Okay, that was a big one. There are planets out there. The moon. Yeah, we landed on the moon. I mean, just think about all of the big things that have happened to humanity. If the headline is aliens exist, I mean, that's huge. I mean, it's incredible. And I think, and here's the other side of this. We've heard politicians in high offices tell us for a long time, hey, we're going to release all the UFO files. Remember, during Trump's first term, he said, I'm going to release the JFK files. And then it took him till his second term to actually do that. There was really nothing in there that any of us didn't know anyway. But if they released all the evidence they had on unidentified flying objects, holy crap, my friends. I think that would be ginormous, if that's even a word. It's not. One thing that we've been hearing from the left since Trump's first term is that it's both sides who commit political violence. I mean, I would argue that violence is violence, but, no matter the motivation. But that it's both sides. That everybody, all sides, Republicans and Democrats, they all commit violence. Well, the truth is that the scale, or in the column of left versus right, the left commits way more. And there's a reason for that. Because it is the rhetoric of the left that they really don't pull any punches. Let me give you an example. So here's a video of Nancy Pelosi saying that Trump is the worst thing on earth. Go ahead and play that one for me, Ken.
Creature. The worst thing on the face of the earth, but anyway.
You think he's the worst thing on the face of the earth?
I do, yeah. I do.
Why is that?
Because he's the President of the United States and he does not honor the Constitution of the United States.
The worst thing
In fact,
on earth.
He's turned the Supreme Court into a rogue court. He's abolished the House of Representatives. He's chilled the press. He's chilled the press. He's
Abolished
scared people
the House of Representatives.
Who are in our country legally.
I know you've said the focus is on Prop 50. I know you've said you won't talk about your future until after.
Holy crap.
I'm a believer in aliens. I've just seen one.
She's just drank too much vodka and is playing with her teeth. But listen, I mean, did you listen to what she said? That Trump is the worst thing on earth? And I don't know where she gets the whole, he abolished the House of Representatives. Let's listen to it again, Ken. Play it one more time.
He's just a vile creature. The worst thing on the face of the earth. But anyway.
You think he's the worst thing on the face of the earth?
I do, yeah. I do.
Why is that?
Because he's the President of the United States and he does not honor the Constitution of the United States. In fact, he's turned the Supreme Court into a rogue court. He's abolished the House of Representatives. He's chilled the press. He's chilled the press. He's scared people who are in our country legally.
I know you've said the focus is on Prop 50.
So,
I know you've said...
And just, like, words mean things, my friends.
2 + 2 is 4, not 5 if you want it to be 5. And this is not to be discriminatory. This is to stand up for language. Words mean things.
So we are far past the time that we shouldn't take people at their word. When Democrats like Nancy Pelosi say that he's a vile creature, that he's the worst thing on earth, if you are one of these people that, let's just say that you're a few marbles short of a whole bag, a few fries short of a Happy Meal, and you hear things like that, what does that convince you to do? Well, if you're convinced that Nancy Pelosi is saying anything that's truthful, you might think to yourself, wow, I've got to do something. And we say these things, and we wonder why people act the way that they do, why they climb up on buildings who, have a slight inclined roof, and so the FBI can't get up there. And you take a shot at the President of the United States. My friends, it's not both sides that are calling for violence against their political enemies. Virginia just elected an attorney general who, in his own text messages, said that his political opponent deserves 2 bullets to the head and his kids. We're in a place where you got to be very careful about what you say, because there are crazy people out there, and I would argue that if you're going to go kill another person, you have to be a little crazy anyway. But this is people in high places of power that are saying some pretty horrible things. And I quote, this is from Breitbart News. Monday on CNN's The Lead, Nancy Pelosi called President Donald Trump the worst thing on earth. I quote, and I said, he's a vile creature. He's the worst thing on earth. But anyway, now, did you notice the reaction from the interviewer? That there was zero pushback on what she said. He didn't even stop to say, whoa, hold on a minute. That he's the worst thing on earth, even worse than a tick or a mosquito or... Saddam Hussein, it's the worst thing. Of course, Saddam Hussein isn't on this world anymore. He's, far below. But there was no pushback from the media at all because the media participates in this thing. Here's a soundbite from The View. Go ahead and play that one. Listen to this.
After reading the transcript and watching the interview, I think the one who was released from an insane asylum was him. So let's clarify some of the things he said that are just downright lies. Okay. He goes and he says that he doesn't think ICE is going far enough. It turns out that even people who voted for him think that the abuse of power, the things that ICE are doing are too much. His numbers on immigration are now...
Yeah, I mean, you should thank me, Agent 29. I didn't make you watch The View. We just had to listen to part of it. I know. It's a little solace, but hey, I mean, I got to have a little credit here. But Anna Navarro says, is that Anna Navarro? I think so. Anyway, she says that he escaped from an insane asylum. Okay, well, what do you do with insane people? Well, you have to round them up and put them back, right? So it is not just the politicians that engage in this crazy rhetoric. It's It's the media too. And the guy that was interviewing Nancy Pelosi, he didn't say a darn thing about it. But if you look at all of the recent, shootings, attacks, which side of the political spectrum do you think they all line up on? Are they all conservative Republicans? Are they all radical church-going people?
How many Oath Keepers have been hauled off recently?
Exactly.
Yeah. Even the Proud Boys. there were a couple of incidents where some rowdies got out and did some dumb things, but you just don't see it.
Yeah. I mean, and it's so just reject this whole idea that there's violence on both sides. Does it happen every once in a while? Sure. Like I said, you got to be a little bit crazy to want to hurt another person. But when you look up the ticks on either side of the ledger, it's the Democrats, and so don't buy into this whole. And I told you about the sign that was in Sheridan. Let's give them 1793 France. What does that mean? It means that let's haul out the guillotine and start lopping heads off. That's what that means. And that was in downtown Sheridan. I mean, and there were signs akin to that all across in all of those protests.
L.A., the Dodgers won. Let's go burn stuff down.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, that was just another pride parade for them. But think about this, right? If you're a crazy person and you hear somebody that you're a fan of say, "Well, that Donald Trump is the worst thing on earth," well, then, or you're convinced of, well, he's a Nazi. They're Nazis. We have to go. What do you do with Nazis? Well, you get rid of them. And so, it's here's a result. This one's from the Federalist. The article is entitled, "The Atlantic Says It's Trump's Officials' Own Fault That They Have to Flee Homes for Safety." Now, this is the Atlantic, okay? It's a leftist magazine, so this is the media also. And I quote, "The threat of left-wing violence against senior members of the Trump administration is so severe that families with young children are being forced to vacate their homes and live on military bases. According to The Atlantic, they had it coming. Officials such as top advisor Stephen Miller, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio, Dan Driscoll, and an unnamed senior White House official have been forced to live in military housing, far more than in previous administrations." The Atlantic's Michael Scherzer, Missy Ryan, and Ashley Parker noted in a Thursday piece. The authors have some thoughts about why. Facing a dramatic uptick in threats and assassination attempts by leftists against conservatives, these officials might be uprooting from their family homes. The culprit, they declare, is, and this is what The Atlantic says, is to blame for all of this, the nation's polarization to which the Trump administration has itself contributed. Stephen Miller basically invited kooks to show up at his house and terrorize his wife and kids. See, by advocating for an immigration policy that hurts the leftists' feelings. The irony is lost on the Atlantic writers that the group warning the Millers that their kind will not be tolerated calls itself Arlington Neighbors United for Humanity. So that's the other title of the authors of this piece. Miller, whom leftists like this guy publicly casually fantasize about murdering, is, quote, known for his inflammatory political rhetoric and regularly derides Democrats with inflammatory language, the authors remind us. He was probably wearing a short skirt, too. The point is, my friends, is that when you have a national magazine like The Atlantic saying, hey, they deserved it. They should have to uproot their entire home and move to a military base. What does that tell the actual kooks out there? And I would argue that if you're making these claims and that you're doing this for advancement in politics, you yourself are one of the kooks. That people that are in their right mind don't make claims like this. You saw during the when I was playing the Just the News piece, Hakeem Jeffries. He said that Trump is running a, quote, pedophile protection program. Oh my God! Now, can we get back to a point at which we actually have a discussion without threatening the lives and the lives of people's families? I mean, can we just do that? Can we sit down and have a discussion? Apparently not, if you're Hakeem Jeffries, Nancy Pelosi, or any of the others. So, why is it that Zoran Mamdani won the election? Why is it that all those Democrats who arguably they've all said some pretty crazy things, Jay Jones. Oh, by the way, did you notice that DEI is over in Virginia? That we couldn't elect the first African-American woman as governor. We elected the first white Well, I guess DEI doesn't matter anymore. Yeah. When it comes to politics, it's only what gets us elected. From the New York Post, national populists surge around the world, spelling doom for the global elite. So now we're looking at the other side of populism. Now, it certainly was populist rhetoric from Zoran Mamdani that got him elected. Like, he played to the sentiments of the crowd and didn't really tell them anything useful. I mean, there wasn't any real policy prescriptions in there except for free stuff. Free buses, we're going to cap housing, those sorts of things. But as far as actually running the government, no, none of that.
Contrast that with, the Freedom Caucus and the conservatives here in Wyoming are accused of the same.
Yeah, you guys are populist, just populist.
Never offer any specifics. The five and dime was pretty specific.
No, Amy Edmonds says that thing, it didn't do anything.
Went to the ash heap of history, right?
Yeah, dustbin, something like that.
Or the green books.
Yeah, well, okay, so are the green books? No, I guess they're not. But see, the word populism, the left has been very, very successful at adding negative connotations to that. But what is populism? All right, well, a pretty broad definition is that you're playing to the sentiments of the crowd. Now, if doing polling and research ahead of releasing policy prescriptions is populism, well, then, yeah. But Agent 29 brought up a good example that the five and dime plan, which was passed in the last legislative session, was the result of extensive polling that was done throughout the state. And those 5 bills, those were the top 5 things, the top 5 concerns that Wyoming citizens expressed in that poll. That's where the five and dime plan came from, was, hey, these 5 things are most important to Wyoming citizens. From the New York Post, Democrats are flummoxed that President Donald Trump can keep winning where they find his views so despicable. Recent elections from around the world, though, provide an answer. People want conservative populism. Argentine President Javier Milei's I love that guy. Have you ever read any of his speeches? I don't think he doesn't really give speeches in English, so you got to read a transcript of them. But they're absolutely incredible. We need more people like him that think like him to run for office here. And when he was running for election, I made it a point to go look at pictures of his rallies. And the fascinating thing is in the crowd, and we're talking about Argentina. In the crowd, people were waving Gadsden flags, the "Don't Tread on Me" flag, and waving American flags in the crowd of a political rally for the now Argentine president. His Liberty Advances alliance swept to victory in almost all of Argentina's 26 states, crushing the Peronist opposition by 9 percentage points. Milei's allies did this the Trumpian way, by winning the blue-collar former Peronist strongholds around Buenos Aires and in rural flyover country. And they did it despite relatively poor economic news. While Milei's radical reforms did bring inflation down dramatically and usher in an economic recovery, progress since then has kind of stalled. The Argentine peso has been in a free fall, prompting a $40 billion bailout from Trump shortly before the vote. Most experts thought voters would signal their impatience with Milei's reforms by giving the Peronists a win. Instead, they rewarded his boldness. In recent months, conservative populists have won elections in Poland and Czechia, too. In Poland's June presidential contest was instructive. Historian and political neophyte Karol Nawrocki started the campaign in a poor position, but he won against the odds by unfailingly striking Trumpian themes on nationalism and culture. And so while you could say that all of this is populism, I think that it speaks to a deeper-rooted political phenomenon, and that is most people, and again, this is a pretty broad statement, but most people are tired of the globalist image of how our world ought to operate. There are a lot of countries that are in the EU that have crappy economies. It's the globalist vision that they have to stop climate change in its tracks. When climate change, well, yeah, it does change, just not on the time scale that all these radicals think. But people in countries like the U.S., Argentina, Poland, Czech, the former Czech Republic, all of them are tired of this globalist image that we have to all think the same, and we have to all act the same. We have to stop climate change, and we have to get rid of fossil fuels and all this. People are tired of that. In truth, people just want to have a warm house. They want to be able to go to work, make some money, and provide for their family. They want to live in a country that doesn't have, a government that seeks to know everything that's going on in their lives. That get government out of the way, let business prosper, and by the way, stop taxing the bejesus out of us. Now, if all of those things are populism, then sure, I'm totally in favor of it. Really, what it is, I think, is conservatives responding to the concerns of the people that are electing them, actually meeting them where they're at and saying, hey, what's important to you? What things do you think need to be changed in our government? And one of the top things, and it admittedly, it kind of irritates me, but one of the top concerns of people is election integrity. And the only reason it irritates me is I just wish that we could move on to another subject. There's something else that we could talk about. Not that it's not important, not that I don't think that there are problems. It's just, man, getting beaten over the head with it. Let's play a different game for a bit and keep working on it.
You think it's bad where you sit.
Well, yeah, you get hammered with like 23 election bills, which they all address problems. One of the headlines I saw in the Cowboy this morning was bill. Let me just find it for you because the headline is. Hold on, just a second. What does it say? Yeah. Bill heads to session that would ban dropping off ballots for others. That, my friends. Oops, that's not it. My mouse moved too fast. Here we go. A Wyoming legislative committee advanced a bill Tuesday to criminalize dropping of ballots off for other people, with few exceptions. Supporters say it protects election integrity, while critics say it could make felons out of well-meaning friends. Now, wait a minute. Your right to vote is one of the most sacred rights that you have. It's the only time that you have that you actually get a say in what happens in the government. You get to vote for your candidate. Okay, so it's only one vote, but at least you get a say, right? There were there's a lot of elections in Wyoming that are decided by very, very few votes. Ken, your first election, how many did you win by? It was a pretty small number, wasn't it?
Well, I lost the first one.
Well, the first time you won.
35, I think.
35 votes. Okay, so don't tell me that one vote doesn't matter. For the Cowboy to characterize this as, we're making felons out of well-meaning people. Well, you should take care of your own ballot, right? There's no reason why you should put it in the hands of somebody else that may not deliver it. That's the whole point. Your ballot could be switched out for something else and maybe voted entirely a different way. Well, anyway, my friends, that'll about do it for today's installment of the program. Make sure you don't miss tomorrow. We're going to have that interview with President of UW, Ed Seidel. Have a good afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow.